So after giving it some thought, I've realized that there are different types of homeless. What determines whether you're a wanderer or a homeless is your mentality. A homeless mentality is one that isn't at home within themselves, and that manifests in many different forms. Behaviors, attitudes toward the world, and a wanderer is just that, a wanderer. Sometimes wanderers have goals, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have aspirations to do something or be something in the world and for themselves, and sometimes they don't. A wanderer is just that, a wanderer. You tell me which one you fall under if you are in fact a wanderer or a homeless. And I love getting to know this place that we live. It's beautiful. So here we go, which by the way, if you don't know who I am, I'm on a journey going from nothing to everything I want. And what I want is simple. I've lived in a tent myself, got a car, lived in that. And the people I know, some really close to me, been homeless themselves. Some got 9-to-5 jobs and built families. My dad was one of those people. And then met my mom, and they were together until he died. My dad made the decisions to overcome addictions, to overcome drugs, and got a place and built himself up. But he was working a lot all the time, except minus maybe 2 days out of the week, sometimes one. So anyway, I'm rambling now. I'll start off with the most obvious, most common one that everybody sees, the beggar addict. As the name would suggest, the addict is just that. Addicted to drugs and begging for change outside of the convenience stores. He has no real aspirations. A part of himself has died and never found the phoenix. And so he has never risen above that. No aspirations, no goals, no dreams, hopeless, homeless. The beggar addict is a sad reality, and it's very real. They have traumas, emotions they haven't solved within themselves, hurt and damaged by the world, whether socioeconomic, whether family related, pained, can't seem to escape unless through substance abuse. And so they can't see past anything else but that. And so every day their purpose is to find relief. And so they find it through drugs, and anything beyond that is beyond them. They just can't see it, they can't believe it, nothing. Which sometimes that pattern, that way of being, not really a place anybody wants to go, could also lead you to the second type of homeless, which is the mentally deranged, the mental homeless, schizophrenic, unable to hold any ground of being hurt by this world, economic, family, genetic, or because of drugs. Methamphetamine causes delusions and hallucinations and can lead to schizophrenia. Those people incessantly talking aloud themselves, they can hardly hold a conversation, and they too have no point of return. Another sad reality that we must accept. Socioeconomic does play a huge role. It's one of the reasons why our families can't be fully with their children, is because they're so busy trying to make a living. They forget family. So all they see and all they know is work. The values of this world can fog their mind. So that's the mentally deranged, the mental homeless. Now the third one, which is hard to determine whether you're a wanderer or homeless on this one. It's kind of on the fence. The starving artist. I can't even put a category as to whether homeless or wanderer, because you can sit on a fine line on this one. You could be a starving artist and have art that you do, but you can also, and you can wander and have those aspirations and build on them to hope to become true. And that's the positive light on the starving artist. But the starving artist can also get hung up on drugs. So you gotta be careful if you are a starving artist, because there are certain drugs that can enhance your art, but there are also certain drugs that can deteriorate your art and your own being, your own mentality. But the starving artist is one of them. Typically travel, or sometimes they stay in one location and try their hardest to work on their art. And if you are a starving artist, then make every effort you can to have your inspiration, have your aspirations, and have your dreams and work towards it. And that would be my message to the starving artist, because I am one of those. There's many people out there who are living in homes and who are not living in homes who are also the starving artists. But specifically a starving artist that doesn't have a home. Everybody knows the starving artist. This particular starving artist is one who roams, working on their art and hopefully have a dream. The starving artist can also be considered the vendor homeless or the vendor wanderer. They may be traveling with a van or a car on foot, their equipment, posting up at Venice Beach, high foot traffic places. They could be street performers, street jugglers, and the starving artist would fall into that category as well. So you'll see these vendors in Hollywood, or you'll see these street performers or starving artists, whatever art they have, to make just a little bit of money for that day. May or may not hope to be something big. So that's the starving artist. And then there's the rich tech. And the rich tech, those who have souped up vans, souped up buses, whatever it is, they're on YouTube, they're online, they have websites, social media, or like the influencer type travels around, and whether they're not on Instagram, they work from online and they make all their money on the road. They're very, very wealthy, live like kings and queens, traveling wherever they want. They don't have a home per se, and if they do, they don't live there. They probably Airbnb it out, and that's sort of their lifestyle. But they have no street skills. They are basically domesticated people living a nomadic lifestyle. I have a lot of respect for them because they know what they're doing. They're crafty. They're definitely not struggling. They may or may not be against the status quo. It doesn't matter to them. Just love to live that way. More power to them. That's the rich tech. That must be number 4 now. Speaking of living affluently on the road, this comes in number 5, the celebrity. I would say the celebrity would be more of a wanderer. And the celebrity, as you could guess, is always on tour, always on the road, never really at home, unless you're like, you're done with your career type of celebrity and you've retired, then you're kind of posted. But if you're not a retired celebrity, the celebrity lifestyle is almost like a wanderer lifestyle, or wandering from hotel to hotel, on buses, on planes, traveling from one country to the next or one state to the next. Never really posted and never settled in one spot. And therefore, I categorize the celebrity as a wanderer. Like any of the other wanderers. They live pretty interesting lives, affluent, of course, like the rich tech, a lot more than the rich tech. It's their lifestyle, and like I said before, any on the list, living like that for just a small amount of time to long time. It doesn't matter. Like, time does not matter. You could be any one of these on the list at any point in time in your life. It doesn't matter how long, it doesn't matter how short. So that's the celebrity, like a really affluent wanderer. But they're working, they're doing their art, their craft, whatever it is they do. They probably have a management team that books all their flights and sends them to this place and sends them to that place, and on their own time, their own leisure, probably traveling, a little bit more. So the celebrity is also a wanderer. Now going back on the opposite end, the hitchhiker, the train hoppers. They're in it for the adventure, solely for the adventure. There is no aspiration to make money per se. It just kind of comes when it comes. I mean, they're gonna do what they do to make money, but their sole purpose is for adventure and adventure alone. They might be artists themselves, but just imagine somebody like who's just 18 or 19, just getting out of high school or something, and who's just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to live this way. I don't want to go to work and have a job. I want to go explore and see the world. I don't want to go to college. Fuck that shit. I want to do what I want to do. So they get a backpack, get their things, and with whatever mentality they have, and they go. Hitchhike, train hop, on foot, whatever, adventure. That's the sole purpose. Like any other ones on the list, it's never permanent. Life is always changing. Could be just for a few months, could be for years. You don't know. Number 7, the family wanderers. They typically have a van or an RV, and they take off and go. Sometimes they stay posted at a certain place, at an RV park or something, live out of their RV for the time being until they're ready to go. And what they do for money varies, and their goal is just to raise their kids, but in a different way, in a very, very non-traditional way. The kids grow a very strong intellect because they know firsthand that the world is always changing. I think that there's something with traveling that gets people to understand the impermanence of life. That's why I think that it's not so bad for children to travel. At least that's my opinion, because I know some people say, well, stability is important for kids. And I think so too, especially when they're really young. But after a certain age, like 6 or 7, then they start to really gather their mind like, whoa, life really does change. It's not ever static. It's ever changing, and that's important for kids to know. And also, traveling bonds families together. Even if you're doing it for just a few months, expect that you're going to be bonding with your kids that much more intensely, because everything is constantly changing, and the only thing that remains is the connection that you have with your children, with your kids. And so I really highly respect families that do that, that want to break the social norm, and they go out there and they do what they want, they travel where they want, and they see the world, and they grow with their kids. I highly admire that and respect that deeply. So you're definitely an inspiration for any of you who are living that way. You're an inspiration for me. I wish I could do that with my kids. So unfortunately, my other side of the family, their other side of the family don't see that at all. So I will live vicariously through you. And you may be YouTubers even. I've seen YouTubers with families who are wanderers in that way. So thank you for what you do. And I hope your kids are having fun, because it could be a fun life. It could be a tough life, but it could be a fun life. But that's the family wanderer. Now, number 8, I would categorize as not really a wanderer and not really a homeless, but I still need to put it on the list. It isn't really within society. Number 8 is the off-grid. The off-grid goes within a forest or in the middle of the desert or somewhere, builds their fort, their fortress, their castle, their tent, their whatever it is, and they live off the land if they can. More introverted, I'd imagine. I haven't really met too many people like that, because you probably don't see them, you know what I mean? In the city, they're not in town, they're probably next to the city, but they're off-grid. They probably have their own electric supply, probably have their own water supply, I don't know. And if they don't, I'm sure that they do go into town from time to time to grab resources and bring it back to their camp or their home or wherever they're staying. They might also travel from time to time, but I'd imagine them being more static than all the rest of the types of homeless wanderers on the list. I would definitely see them being the most static. Those are the ones that have probably just said, fuck the society, fuck the system, and I'm just gonna go live by myself and enjoy nature and being out there. I could never do that, because I think it's selfish for me. Everybody has their own purpose in their life. Everybody has their own destiny, their own calling. For me, it is not that, because I want to be within society, and I want to be something that helps grow and change it. You know, living out there by myself, I could do it. It's possible. It's not impossible. Even if the government didn't find me, just feel like I would be abandoning a part of myself, because a part of myself is the world around me. The world around me, as you can see on social media, wants to inspire others around them to be more who they are. The whole world can change as a society collectively. Wouldn't be able to do that if I was off-grid. I was on YouTube teaching people how to be off-grid themselves, but I think that you don't need more distance. I think we need more togetherness. Just my personal feeling. But that's number 8, off-grid. Now, the most interesting on the list, number 9, a term that you've heard used probably everywhere and don't really know what it means. It's super new agey. The most interesting on the lists for me, the 5D. Now, imagine seeing somebody getting dropped off randomly at some bus stop, and the person gets out of the car and just stands there. And at that perfect time, a bus comes, and the bus stops right where that person was dropped off. But you can tell by the person's energy, you can just feel it, that they didn't really mean to do that. They sort of just stumbled upon, sort of just got dropped off there. Now they dig into their pockets and they pull out some money, some change, and they kind of make the connection, like, this is where I'm supposed to go. And so they get on the bus, they pay for the fare, and they're on their way. They don't really know where they're going, they're just going. And they end up, let's just say, they were on this bus and they had made their way to another bus stop, and they didn't feel it inside themselves to get off yet. And so they kept going. And somebody on the bus started having a conversation with them. They were on their way to a party and they were really low key about it, but for some reason they felt called to this person. Yeah, sure, I'll go. So they get off the stop and they walk together to a mansion. And so it's a party in like Hollywood or something. And this person goes to the party, has a blast, and gets connected to another person. That's just kind of how the story goes, on and on and on. One thing leads to the next, really without having any thought into it. It just is happening, and you're going with it. This person has probably an infectious personality or an infectious energy. This person is magical. They won't even be able to tell you what it is. You could just feel it off of this person. It's because they've sort of tapped into a certain consciousness or a certain type of reality within themselves that had realized that with no means to no end, it just keeps going. Everything does end, but then not really. Does he know where he's going? Not really. Somehow at this mansion party, maybe somehow he stumbles upon somebody who, like, hey, where are you going? Like, oh, I don't really know. I don't really know where I'm going. The 5D, living in 5D, you still might have your art, your cleverness, and people might find the need in that of you. If you're following your authenticity and you're following your highest excitement, and you don't do anything in any moment that you don't love, you only do what you love. You only do what you feel intuitively. Eventually, you'll get carried. Eventually, life will somehow flow with you in a direction you may not completely know. And that's a very magical life. Not really magical, more practical, but not at the same time. The most interesting of all on this list. They have no purpose, yet a purpose. So they're kind of in this all the time. That's giving them a bunch of color. They don't stress about things like that. They don't stress about money. They've realized that money, like anything, like the rain, like, you know, changing the colors of the leaves, that all is happening. This person realizes he is the river. He is the river that flows. The water flows where it needs to be, and he knows that. This is what it's like to live in the 5D state of consciousness. Your intuition, the synchronicities, the serendipity, the wisdom, a festival. And I was laying down, enjoying my bliss, and there was a chick with some friends, but she was kind of far at a distance, and I was in a tent just laying down, and she looks at me. Her friends keep walking, but she looks at me, and her friends keep walking, and she turns, and she just walks straight towards me, like with a sort of like knowing but blank stare on her face, like not knowing at the same time. She comes and she lays on top of me, and I'm sort of like, I kind of hold her, and then I feel like I'm not sure what's happening, and in that moment, because I wasn't sure what was happening, she gets up and she walks away, and then she comes back because I'm feeling like, and I'm looking at her, really attracted to her. And she comes back and she lays on me again, and then doesn't feel it, gets up and walks away. Doesn't say a word. It's like everything was, she was just following this energy, following this flow. D is the most interesting. Number 9 is the last one. Hey, what do you think out of all those 9, what do you think, if you are a wanderer or homeless yourself, tell me on the list, be honest with yourself, and you can write in the comments where you think you are on that list, and maybe even where you want to be. Because for me, we're all heading toward the 5D. I don't think there's a coincidence here. I just think that a lot of people are afraid to step into that because they have a lot of attachment to fear. It's really difficult to just drop your things and find out where the world's going to take you. Now, I'm sure even in 5D, you might have some sort of longing to do, but they're very simple. When it comes to 5D, you might have like a certain aspiration or a certain desire to do something like, I just want to take a shower, you know? I just want to go shower. You end up stumbling upon somebody and they're like, hey, you want this bike? Here, just take it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to get rid of my things. Out of nowhere, you just stumbled at the right place at the right time with the right person who wanted to just randomly give you a bike. Because that person was just moving and was like in a desperate hurry to just leave. He was just like, here, have my bike. You had your bike and you're like, well, I want to take a shower. Meet somebody who might offer you a shower, or you might go to a gym because you have like maybe $10 on you, you know, day pass, and you get your shower. And the next thing you think like, man, and then you go from there. You're living in the moment, and not like some of the others on the list, you know what I mean? Like the starving artist who wants to be a famous this and a famous that and has these big goals, while the 5D has goals, but they're in the minute moment. It's in the immediate moment, you know what I mean? And that is where you find your magic. That's where the 5D lies is within this now moment, this now ever-changing moment. So I think that's where everybody wants to go. I think that's where everybody's heading naturally. Walking ourselves there, unconsciously sleepwalking ourselves there. And that's why you're watching this right now. You're seeing a bunch of people on social media, and you're seeing people on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube who are videoing themselves dance in public, getting people to smile, and millions of views for just this dude dancing. There's this one couple on Instagram, it doesn't matter what the couple's name is, but they were dancing. There's 2.5 million followers just for videoing themselves doing what they love, dancing. And they're getting paid for it. And then they're getting paid an insane amount of money. They make way more than a person who's working a 9-to-5, probably 2 9-to-5s, probably way more than that. So that's where we're heading. And those are the 9 types of homeless or wanderers that I've seen out there. If you know of any more, you can list them below what you think, but there's not just one type of homeless. Nuh-uh. Different types. So you can't ever judge. You can't judge a book by its cover. You can't judge a person by the way they dress. Those are the 9 types, my 9 types of homeless wanderers. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed. Later.